Hello. This is an explanation that I've always given before my session, so I'm finally got around to doing it on video. So basically this just helps to understand what's going on when someone signs up for a session and what to expect so that the mind gets out of the way and we're able to just do the work. So basically I start out by describing a shaman. Essentially, the shaman is the one person in the village who could see things, figure things out, dialogue with nature, physical and non-physical, have healing abilities, and so on, and use that to improve the quality of life of the village. So it's very practical and pragmatic, and it's usually been recognized either through DNA lineage or, some special event that happens. But it's usually at a young age, and they would take that person aside, that one person in the village, and begin the training that allows them to do it in a safe and effective and efficient way to do the work, and that's safe for them and safe for the people they're working on. And the shaman is classically hypersensitive, often somewhere on the autistic spectrum. Tend to be a bit of the rule breaker and the troublemaker as well, because always the visionary shaman's always the one sort of like pushing the envelope of the theater a little bit, and even evolution and stuff. And typically 80% women, maybe, and gay men, and so tends to be related as well to the neuroscience and the ability to facilitate and hold these characteristics and traits. So, and that role has grown in complexity with the complexity of society. So the shaman, maybe the first shaman, kept the fire burning in the cave to keep her children warm, then became the herbologist, the bone setters, the storytellers, the myth makers, the doctors and massage therapists and healers of all kinds, actors and artists of all kinds typically. And I still think, even though in our modern cultures we don't recognize that one odd kid, doesn't mean they've stopped being born. So I still think there's one out of maybe 300 in the world that are born this way, I suspect, based on average village size over 300,000 years. And by the way, shamans, true shamanism is non-hierarchical, and we're really just mechanics. We're mechanics of the soul. We're technicians of the sacred. We're not special. We're not amazing. We're not above anybody, and certainly not above you. And I think it's a very dangerous thing to put anybody up on a pedestal, anybody above you. It just doesn't work well that way. And if anyone ever does that with me, trust me, I will find a way to disappoint you and knock myself off the pedestal. You wouldn't give your mechanic control over your whole life. You don't want to give your power away to anybody. There is nobody above you anywhere, physical, non-physical. Okay, you're the master of your own domain. And so, and shamans aren't sorcerers either. We don't use this work to help kill your enemy by poking pins in a doll of them. We more empower you not to have enemies in the first place. Okay, so not to confuse those two. We're all about empowering the individual to be the creator of their own experiences and never, in fact, need us again, hopefully. So I was one of those child. I had a lot of strange experiences as a child when I was very young. My mom would put me to bed and I would float out of my body and listen to her and her friends talking still, like right in front of her face. I'll never forget it. And just be able to absorb and pick up and learn and study, had a lot of autistic traits as well, and other strange things that happened in my childhood, but including one death experience, the sort of first one that happened to me at age 4. I got electrocuted. And that's the hard way to map the territory. There's an easy and a hard way to do everything. And the easy way would have been born into a village that still recognizes shamans and does ritual ceremony and so on, to maybe plant medicine, things that would allow you to map the territory. get used to working with the non-physical worlds, the world of spirit, and who's there and who you should work with and so on, and who you should avoid. I didn't have that, so I got killed. And I was looking down at my physical body, and it was good because I realized, oh, that's not me. I'm still me. And I traveled around the universe and got a lot of answers, and came back and was reading encyclopedias, and I finally figured out nobody likes a smart-ass 5-year-old. So I toned it down a bit and tried to be normal, following the footsteps of my two older brothers, who I think also have these gifts to an extent, but they were more focused on, sports and cool things like that. So, and school. So I did really well in school, got a degree in engineering, but in the meantime because I wanted to be an astronaut, and they advised me to be an engineer. So in the meantime, I've been studying every spiritual and healing tradition around the planet, and just practicing it, and all the new age stuff and alternative stuff, and it was just like my thing. And but I didn't see myself as anything like that, because I just had no idea. I was a blonde kid from California, and I thought you had to be an old native of sorts. So at some point, I met a Native American medicine woman who helped me understand some of the gifts and tools, but I just thought it was cool. I didn't really make an association with it. It wasn't until I worked with one of my healers that I went to him and said, hey, what is it I'm really here to do? And he said, and this was Dr. Richard Baldwin in San Francisco, a really powerful energy medicine guy who didn't know anything about shamanism either, right? Because this was back 25 years ago when nobody really was talking much about it. But I asked him, what am I really here to do? Because the engineering stuff just was kind of killing me, and it wasn't obviously my thing. And so he went off to his altered state, and he came back and he said, I'm getting the words from my guides, mediator of souls between the worlds. And I didn't know what that meant. I was just looking for a new job. I had no idea. He didn't know what it meant. So he said, but don't worry, it'll find you eventually. So about 3 years after that, just kind of continuing on my engineering work, which I was traveling and in the evenings and weekends looking for the healers all over the world and working with them. So eventually I picked up a book I hadn't read yet in the New Age bookstore called Shaman, Healer, Sage by Dr. Alberto Villoldo. Powerful, wonderful book, very comprehensive. It really covered everything else I'd ever studied, which was everything. It was a lot. And, and he was very professional. He was a medical anthropologist, psychologist, running a lab at USF, looking through microscopes at brain cells, trying to understand placebo effect. And realized maybe he's looking through the wrong end of the microscope, and how do the natives heal. So he studied all the natives of the Americas till he got to Peru and met this very unique tribe called the Q'ero. But before I get to that, basically I went to his workshop, and I sat down and he sat down, and the first thing he told the whole group is a shaman is just a mediator of souls between the worlds. So that was the 2x4 across the head that I needed, because I was very thick and I'm very skeptical and I don't drink anybody's Kool-Aid, and believe it or not. And so that was frightening as can be. But I dove into the training, very extensive, powerful training where we heal ourselves. So we're not healing through our clients as much as possible, attracting our problems till we figure it out. We learn the wisdom teachings and techniques, and then forehead to forehead in ceremony, we get downloaded with all the information, knowledge, and experience that have been passed down from shaman to student, so that it didn't take me 200 years to get good at it, basically. And the student leapfrogs the teacher in shamanism. Otherwise, we end up learning less and less and less, just like children should do better than their parents or we devolve. So therefore, we're able to run with what came before us maybe in more quickly. And also, it's not just me that shows up, it's this team that I'm connected to of those healers who came before me, those shamans, as well as any other team that I want. Anyway, you can call on, anyone can call on anyone from the non-physical world and have them help you. It's unconditional. They're unconditional. Just like I try to be in this work and show up wherever I'm called. And so that's who you end up working with. Not just me. It's this huge team, and they're very eager and very engaging. They show up when I can't show up. They work on people in their dreams. They'll show up in meditations and give them advice in my name, and it's really strange stuff. But so that's how I got to where I am now. The Kero, this particular tribe that Alberto worked with, have been isolated for the last 500 years. It's 16,000 feet in the Andes. You know, they were the pre-Inca and Inca shamans, had been there for 15,000 years. And when they were reading their prophecy one day to see what the weather would be like, because just that's what mattered back then, they would throw coca leaves and get an image of what's coming and make a decision. Do we plant the corn sooner or later, etc. This time they saw these half men, half beast coming with skins of steel and thunder sticks to turn their world upside down. Pachacuti in Quechua, world turned over. And there was very little they could do about it. The conquistadors made it on shore, on horseback, which was the half man, half beast, because they never seen anybody riding an animal before. And what they meant by turn their world upside down has huge implications for the work that we do in our session. And that is the mythic layer of our being, the archetypal stories that are operating within us, causing a signal to ask and receive experiences. And they're unconscious to us mostly. And so the myths, the Kero we're operating from, like most people on the planet, this side of the planet 500 years ago, Northern Europe 2,000 years ago, the Central Europe 6,000 years ago, and other parts of the world, basically their myths were feminine-based, earth-based. It was obvious, it was observational. The feminine gives birth to everything. Nowhere does the masculine give birth. And the masculine at best is here to support that unconditionally and courageously, to support that powerful, wild, untamable feminine, the jungles, the oceans, the volcanoes, the complex female brain, and these things that are of course exciting and scary and deadly even, but that's no reason, right, to cut them down. We're here for that beauty, and it takes courage to continue to serve it even when it's frightening and could kill you. So it was matriarchal, you know, basically it was the feminine that made the decisions, and of course that comes in a spectrum of forms, but basically it worked that way, very peacefully, healthfully and sustainably. And the conquistadors and first, the Kero also believed, of course, that nature conspires to give us everything we need. It clothes us and feeds us and takes our waste and gives us food in return, and, you know, requires really nothing of us, and except to participate, to play in it. So it's really kind of a theater, and it's participatory, so that we're constantly creating. You know, and it seeks greater and greater complexity, consciousness does, through nature. So there's not just one single-celled organism or one tree, or we're not just stones. And Homo sapiens probably isn't the end of the deal. I'm sure Neanderthal thought they were the greatest thing ever, you know. So it's still going, and you know, we don't go to black and white movies anymore. We still have desires for more interesting theater. So Conquistadors said, nope, says here, page 2, the one and only story that's true, King James, Genesis, we all know the story. You don't have to be raised in any of the 3 major world religions that's the basis of, to get it. A myth spread by osmosis, by proximity. But the story is, you know, that we were cast out of the garden, that it's no longer mangoes and papayas, it's thorns and thistles and the sweat of your back, you get anything. And it's woman's fault for tasting the fruit of knowledge. So education became evil, women became evil, right? Nature became evil, obviously written by the first like really misogynistic men who just couldn't stand the power of the feminine, were too frightened, and they needed to do something about it, I guess, in their mind. Unfortunately, that spread, and and that the feminine's born from the masculine, and it was finished on the 6th day, so nothing you could do about it. It's not changing, you know. So the Caro heard that story and went, wow, if that's the story that's being spread all over the planet on these great ships, it's going to be a disaster, because the universe makes you right. Whatever your myths are, you're going to get evidence to support it in your experience. So if such an antagonistic relationship to the feminine, it's going to lead to disease in the body, because this is matter, mater, mother. This is part of the earth, the feminine. And if it's out to get you, it will, thorns and thistles. The Caro don't do disease in that way. And it would lead to environmental disaster eventually, right? Climate change, this type of thing, you know, resource utilization and depletion and extinctions, right? Out of control. So, and remember, this was 500 years ago, right? That they were hearing this for the first time, and the only time, thankfully. But basically, they and the way that we suppress our emotions, right, and the way women are treated, obviously, which is just insane, right? I've known this since I was 4, and I was so upset about it. I told my mom I want to go back until men aren't running things. Anyway, so we're getting there, I think, little by little, but not fast enough for my patience. And so basically, the Caro decided they better leave so that their subsequent generations aren't influenced by this funky story. And so they left 16,000 feet over an 18,000 foot, still a 3 days journey on horseback, 5 small villages. They're still mostly there. The other 29 million Peruvian natives didn't even know they existed. They were completely isolated, right? Until about 60 years ago, they were reading their prophecy again, because they were holding on to the myths that worked, you know, and they knew we'd need them again someday after we blew this thing up or whatever. So they were reading it again. 60 years ago, it said, the Pachacuti's happening again. The world's turning right side up. It's time for the feminine to come back to its value and power, and we'll have a millennium of gold. It'll be great, you know, 1,000 years of peace. And so they started to teach Lamberto and then hundreds of thousands of other shamans from all over the world, because they could see that this was going to happen either the easy way or the hard way. We were either going to blow everything up and then figure out there was a better way to do it and let, frankly, women take over and just be cool about that as men, and courageous and enjoy the wonderful fruits of that, as was normal for 300,000 years before this detour. And or it would be the easy way, which would be more graceful if it was led by what they called the round-eyed shamans from the north, because there were so many of us now living in villages of 20 million, like Los Angeles and Paris and Chicago and New York and every part of the planet, right? And so they began to teach folks like me and Native American shamans. All kinds of people have come to relearn basically what has largely been lost through all the sort of genocidal activities of the fear-driven warrior masculine, right, that took over. And so so that's what's happening on a broad scale. Now, how the session works for you, what I can do with the team here, is that it's based on the idea there's 4 layers to your being, to who you are, to everything. Each one influences or creates the next. It's really all about influence. And so that it's like those Russian nested dolls, you know. So the outer layer, I thought I had one of those around here somewhere. Anyway, the outer layer is your life. The whole reason you do anything, essentially, is it heaven on earth or hell on earth? Are you having more of the experiences you want, less of the ones you don't want? more pleasure than pain, ideally, or not. And it's here in the theater while we're creating things together and playing together. And you get all of your experience on this layer through your health, your relationships, your work, and your resources. Those are the four main avenues by which we get all experiences here. And so we break it down during the session to address each of those. But life is a bunch of experiences. It's not the literal form. This is really important. We've been taught as the fear-driven warrior masculine, basically, in order for me to be happy, I need that house, that relationship, get rid of those people, give me that much money, I'll be good. Well, maybe, maybe not. And that house may not be available. That person may not be available. You can't get rid of enough of them. And so instead, what's the experience that house gives you? Why do you like that house? Well, it's open, roomy, airy, great view. Oh, well, there's 1,000 other houses that'll give me that exact same experience, and one of them will be available. So, 1 second. Alexa, stop. And so as long as you understand what experience you want, then you'll be able to ask for that and let the universe deliver it in whatever form it can. And this is true for all across the board: health, relationships, work, resources. So that's life. Bunch of experiences, ideally more of the ones you want, less of the ones you don't want. So so the universe makes you right. It's like ask and it is given, but you're asking for the experience, not the literal form. That's the God works in mysterious ways that you've heard. Okay, the ways, you don't know how it's going to come to you, but if you're asking and you're very strongly and powerfully, it will come. So that's the second layer, which is the psycho-spiritual, the frontal lobe, the part of you that knows you'd rather that than that. Now how do I get it? How do I ask for it? And those are the meditation, the prayer, the visualization, the mental toughness, the therapy, the coaching. Anything you're doing with your mind is basically this layer, and it's sending a signal, and hopefully, again, if that's really clear and powerful, nothing else is influencing it, then there's a good chance you'll be good at manifesting more of what you want, less of what you don't want here. Okay? And you got to have contrast. Can't be all pleasure all the time, that nothing would exist. You got to have, occasionally you got to stub your toe. You got to get some pain. But hopefully, again, not that much, not that often. Now, where it starts to get interesting is that nobody can do that for you. You're in charge of what's going on here, but you can be influenced. You can be influenced by the experts, the statistics, the friends, the not so friends, the diagnoses, whatever, they're telling you can and cannot experience, or you're going to, you're going to die from that thing you've inherited, and because 99% of the people do. Well, a normal sort of healthy person would be able to, if we were that, right? Because it's been a while, we've been so disempowered, but we'd be able to go, yeah, okay, that sounds great, but no thanks, kick them out of the room. Decide for yourself what you still prefer. Hopefully your signal is strong enough to not be influenced by theirs, and that might be the miracle. You might be the 1% who doesn't die from the thing, or gets the thing that no one else thought you could. And so that's up to you to learn that sort of, there's tons of modalities for dialing that in. There's even more for the physical world, medicine and whatnot. Where my work comes in is that there's also tremendous influence coming from these other two layers of your own being. And they're mostly unconscious, and they can contradict what you consciously think you're believing. That's why people say this stuff doesn't work for them, all these methods, because they're not addressing the bigger signal. And that's where my team goes to work. So the third layer is the mythic. Now the mythic is like I said, those archetypal stories, religious, cultural, familial, societal, things like no pain, no gain, or life's a school, or, so you always have to have lessons, and maybe you go someplace better. Well, it's supposed to be good here. Or I'm only valuable when I'm in battle, which is a lot of our ancestors, right? So if you don't have marauders coming, you're going to have to battle, what, a disease, cancer, something like that. One way or the other, it's going to manifest. So we got to change the mythic layer. Now, the only way to change the mythic layer is ritual, ceremony, images, symbols, art, music, poetry, not talking, not meditating, not visualizing. It's not the frontal lobe. You got to do something. So if you went to a Navajo medicine woman, for example, she'd create a sand painting on the desert floor depicting what you're having trouble with, health, relationships, work, resources, whatever it is you're going to tell her and that you will tell me for our session. And at some point, that sand painting not only symbolizes your life, it becomes your life. It taps into the mythic. And then she just makes the change in the sand painting. Bring this out, move this in, and it changes your life. And it's extremely powerful. That's the feminine. This is the masculine, the harder way to do things. Kind of, I call it swimming upstream. More effort. You still have to do those things, but you kind of want to go downstream instead. It's much more efficient and helpful and effective. So doing the mythic's hugely important. It's the reason shamans work with animal totems, right? Things like this, rattle that we shake, or the vision boards, or the altars, or the, any art, music, poetry, anything really addresses the mythic. And if you do it deliberately, so let's say, for example, I'm having trouble making a decision, I'll wear my puma shirt or cat print something or shake my cat rattle or see them or dream of them. And it's because cats' medicine, everything in nature has characteristics that we can use. Theirs, and there's a book called Animal Speak that covers all this, theirs is decisiveness. When a mountain lion sees a deer, it doesn't go, oh no, it's so cute, am I a bad kitty, should I be a vegetarian, I don't know what to do. No, it leaps and eats, right? It's decisive. Eagle's non-judgment, that 30,000 foot view. How do I know what seems like a tragedy today won't turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to me a year from now? So it's not judge not. It's like you really can't. This is not sufficient. You can be discerning. I don't like that. I don't want to do that. No, thank you. But it's very difficult to know whether it's going to work out good or not. So your first love left, love's horrible. That's horrible. You never do that again. A year later, you meet someone 10 times better. You're like, oh, it's a good thing they left me, right? So an indigenous, but it's a quality of life issue. We're miserable for a year, whereas an indigenous person who's trained this stuff, like we should have been in grade school, they're upset, they're crying, they're hurt, it happens, but they then get out the eagle rattle or the feathers or do the dance or put up the picture on the office wall. And next thing you know, they're like, yeah, who knows, maybe I should relax. Maybe it's going to work out. So it's a quality of life thing. Working with the mythic is extremely powerful. The only two places we still do it in modern culture that it sort of spilled through from that during that shift is sales and marketing, right? They don't say buy our shoes to make you run the fastest. Here's the data. It's a puma. And you go, ooh, I'll take the pumas. And, right, it's very powerful, much more powerful than just direct mental stuff. And then religion, right, where they didn't take over psychology and gyms, they took over ritual and ceremony and burnt the competition at the stake, and now they're the biggest thing on the planet, right? So it's very effective at work. So that's the mythic, and that's your homework. I'm going to do another video. It's on my website under post-session homework, but I'll probably end up doing a couple of videos around that too next. So that's your homework, because I work one level deeper, one level further upstream, furthest upstream, which is the soul in English. It's the aura and chakras in Sanskrit. It's anima in Italian. It's alma in French. It's alma in Spanish. Everybody's got a name for it in every language. Okay, it's like arm, abrazo. There's names for everything. And it's who you are after this physical body's gone. It's the you that can't wait to come play another 100 years in the theater, because when it's good, it's good. Okay? And even if the movie was horrible, your life was difficult, when you go non-physical, you really look forward to coming back again. Maybe it'll be better. And that was the me that was looking down on my physical body and was still totally me, consciously. So So the soul, the you that's you after this physical body's gone, that can't wait to come back into the theater, of course we keep it a secret from ourselves that we've been here before so that we don't get bored. So we have to, just like the movies, you pay your $12, you know it's fake, it's the same actor as the last movie, it's two-dimensional screen, you don't sit there and go, well, this is stupid, why did I pay money to be faked out? You keep it a secret from yourself so you can enjoy the drama, the pleasure, the pain, the laughing, the crying, the scream, the whole thing, right? The suspense, and life is the same to shamans. We literally don't want to remember all our past lives because it would just seem kind of ridiculous. So we keep it a secret from ourselves, who we really are. And of course, the wisdom teachings and all the practices that allow you to recognize you are the one and everybody is the one. That's great when you really need it. If it's getting really bad and you can just go, oh, it's okay, I'm the one. That's helpful. But most of the time you keep that a secret from yourself. So that's the deal. Now, but that part of you, right, the aura and chakras, the you, your soul, who you really are, that might be holding on to painful experiences that didn't get processed and released in the moment, because that's what's normal. When you get hurt, stub your toe, lose someone you love, etc., you cry, scream, yell, process it at a gut level till you can't anymore. Then the heavy energy you can't process goes out the base of your body, the first chakra, the perineum, into the earth, and gets turned into new life, new energy. Just like your food. You don't rationalize, analyze, talk about your food, meditate, visualize your food. You put it in your gut, you burn it with acid, you get what you need to run around and play, and then the heavy energy you can't process goes out the base of your body, coincidentally, into the ash from the combustion process, the digestion, goes out and gets mulched and turned into new food. That's the deal. So, but unfortunately for 6,000 years now, we've been told, don't cry, don't get angry, suck it up, be strong, be stoic, be a man, don't be a woman, don't be hysterical, right? That became bad. Only the rational became exalted. Even the separation of spirit and matter is bogus. Matter, mater, mother, no, inanimate, our Father who art somewhere amazing, right? That's ridiculous. There's nothing more spiritual than biology, the way it seeks greater and greater complexity. So, everything's alive. There's no place God is not. It's another way to say it. So, but since we were told that, we've been blocking the release of those painful experiences, every little one that we didn't process, cry, emote. And so now we've backed up the sewage system. It's dulled the aura and chakras. We're not painting halos around us. We're not healing instantly, manifesting instantly. Instead, we're struggling, to work upstream against these signals that come from those painful experiences that have been lodged. Now, the good news is there's only 6. A good psychologist knows there's only 6 problems that ever walk through their door. There's only 6 movies that have ever been made, because the core painful experiences, regardless of who did what to whom and how, whether you did it to yourself, did it to someone else, had it done to you, watched someone else do it, it's all the same painful experience. And those 6 are loss, abuse, betrayal, abandonment, neglect, and engulfment. Bondage, right? You won't let me out of the house, you tied me up, I got buried alive in an avalanche, something like that, right? Lack of freedom. Loss, lose a car, lose a friend, lose your house, lose a job, it's just loss. So again, it plays out across health, relationships, work, resources, any combination of those. The wounds happen in combinations. But the bottom line is those imprints are basically trying to override, and write your script unbeknownst to you. And it's a big signal. So the first thing we do in the session is we have you lay down. We put my mesa stones on you, which you choose. I'll show you those in a moment. And the stones that have been also initiated by my teacher stones in an unbroken lineage for, tens of thousands of years, know how to miqui in Quechua, which is to combust or digest those heavy energies, returning them to the earth where they should have gone out in the first place. So I call it like an energetic enema. And the work is graceful, gentle, where it's like we're taking the mud out of the bottom of the glass without stirring it up. Okay, so you don't have to go through it, experience the emotions, not like Gestalt or the breathwork stuff that I study. It's really just the grace of this amazing lineage that you've called upon and the ability to do it, that they just remove it, okay? And that's it. Once it's out, it's out. And then you do the next step, which is blow into a stick and burn it, something like that, like the Mythic toilet homework piece that I have. And then you do the psycho-spiritual work and physical work, but it allows it to actually produce the results you've been hoping for. Again, much more gracefully and easily and quickly, relatively speaking. So that's the first step. I do everything in one session. If I broke it out, that'd be better business model or marketing, but I'm not that. I never have been, never will be, and it's okay. I don't want to be. It's not my thing. I just like to get it done, and the people who come to me will come to me because of that, and they'll go to someone else for the more gradual and gentle approach. So I just do that first step. It takes longer to talk about it than to do it, because this is non-local. I can do it over phone and Skype all over the world. It works just as well. You know, I've been doing it for 20 years, and it's all word of mouth, and I'm still doing it because it works, and people tell people. Again, no marketing abilities. That's a whole subject. But anyway, so we do the first clearing. Then the second step is to make sure you're not living your ancestors' wounds, because often we're still connected to great-great-great-great-grandmother, because it's been several thousand years now that we've not done the ritual, the ceremony, because it's easier to do ritual, right, the mythic, than to talk about it or argue over it or kill each other over it, which is at 13, 14, post-puberty, they would bring you out to the village square, tie you to your parents with a vine, cut it, pass you through a split tree or a hole in the ground, and say, okay, your true mother's the earth, your true father's the sun, right? Now go grow your own food and raise your own family. They're done. They kept you alive. They fed you. They're not responsible for you anymore. You're not responsible for them. If you like them, you can still have tea. You can still hang out the rest of your life. They're still in the village. You got the support of the village. It's all good. But they're just not your parents anymore. And that way it cut the energetic thread. And you know, and you could also just leave them. Maybe you didn't like them, you know, you can, and that's when the parent grieves the loss of their child either way, because it's over. And it's good that it is. So, and it cuts the thread, an energetic thread that otherwise is running you like a puppet on a string, where your, again, great-grandmother's loss, abuse, betrayal, abandonment, neglect, or engulfment might be creating your experience, and it's not even yours. So we make sure and cut those. At the same time, you know, do this death rites, death and rebirth. At the same time, I'll do extractions like the spear and the noose and the things that might be causing you problems in your body, in this body, that came from something from, again, a past life or even your ancestors. And so we want to extract those things, and then extract any entities, which are like, you've seen like the Exorcist stuff. That's the extreme, really nasty ones. Usually it's just like, there was a true story of a young woman I was working with through a group of psychologists that was a raging alcoholic, but she had no reason to be, really, from her childhood. It was all fine. But what had happened was, when I got in there, I saw that there was an uncle. Like, I see everything I'm doing like a movie in my head when I get into the session. But it was like her uncle had passed away when she was 4 and was lost, and took up residence with her because he felt comfortable and safe there. But of course he still wanted to drink, so she was influenced by that and drinking. Remember, it's all about influence. So got rid of the uncle. She didn't want to drink anymore. That was it. So those kind of things. Just, it's a studio apartment. There shouldn't be anybody else living in there, so we gotta send them out. And if they're good ones and you like them around, they can work for you from out here, not attached to your nervous system. Okay, so the third step is what we call the soul retrieval. This is when if you experience trauma, it could be something like in a war, it could be a job you didn't like because you needed the money, it could be any kind of trauma. If you perceive it as victim, perpetrator, or rescuer, instead of creator of your own experience, in other words, you hit me, I cry, I'm upset, I'm hurt, and then you ruin my life now, and I got to get you back. So now I go from victim to perpetrator and then keep you from doing it to someone else, rescuer, then you do it anyway, now I'm hurt again. So we dance around this disempowerment triangle. There's whole books on this subject. But basically what happens is, instead of going, okay, you punched me, it hurt, that was horrible, but I'm fine, I'll be good, I'm over it, maybe we can even be friends, or not, I don't ever want to see you again, either way it doesn't matter, but because discernment's fine, but I keep my power, I don't give you my whole life. So that's the ideal. And again, for shamans, it's healers, it's you can beat me all day, I can take it, but if I hurt somebody, I'm devastated. That's like the worst thing. I can hardly. So being the perpetrator for some people is much more painful than being the victim, and it's just a very strange thing. So so when that might have happened, and that perception happened, a quantum of energy of your soul stayed and hid. Sometimes you die of shock where the whole soul says, this is so bad, I'm leaving the theater even though I paid my $12 to get in. It's so bad, I'm out of here. Instead, when that quantum of energy of your soul goes missing, with it is missing the passion and the gifts that part held. So you're not the happy-go-lucky person you were before the event, okay? And you get diagnosed with PTSD and other things. And so we're able to go back in time, change your perception, bring that soul part back with the passion and the gifts so you're whole again. And we change any contracts that got made. Like a young girl who's abused by her father, 30 years later, most of her relationships are abusive. It's well documented in psychology. And the reason is, when it was happening as a child, her perception, her beliefs, the myths and beliefs she created were that love equals abuse. Because daddy loves me, he hurts me, they must go together. And that becomes the signal. And those are the men that show up at her doorstep. So what we do is we change the contract when we do the soul retrieval to love is warm, nurturing, kind, and supportive, for example. And we bring back the gifts, and we bring a power animal that'll help you keep that soul part safe, to keep your power, and no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do, because shit still happens, right? Painful things happen. It's part of the theater. You just don't, want to lose yourself because of it, lose parts of you. So that's the soul retrieval. The final step in the session, and then there's another step that can happen a couple weeks later that you do on your own, essentially, is what we call destiny retrieval. So through this left eye to left eye tracking process, I'm able to page through all your possible futures on this level. So you can tell me your goals mentally, right? Coaching, therapy, what would you prefer to be experiencing in your life? You can make a picture of it, even better, a vision board. That's what my life's going to look like. That's what's behind me. This is a representation of me, surrounded by all the medicine, the beings, and the things that support my work, my life, which is my life, my work, as a shaman. And so you make a picture of this, and it's even stronger, right? It helps manifest it. But I can go forward in time on this level as well, and page through all your possible futures, the most probable of which used to be aligned with the past, but now we've loosened it. Now we can find that ideal you've told me you preferred, and we can bring it in to your energy field, reorganizing your luminous architecture with those patterns. So that's what's influencing. It's like being pulled forward by who you're becoming instead of what was happening before, which is influenced by what had happened in the past. So, and then the final step would be shadow work. We've healed the wounds, the past life, this life. We've healed the ancestral stuff, extracted. We've done the soul retrieval. We've done the destiny retrieval. Now you're still free to take a left turn, mess it all up if you want, do anything you want, of course, because it's your gig. This is your sandbox. But, and there's no judge or scorekeeper. There's nobody to say it's you can't or can't do something. But basically, you're more likely to be getting what you want. And then the one thing that might continue to bring you people, particularly behaviors of people that are an exaggeration of a part of you that, well, what it is. So the thing is, you might still be running into people that bug you, that bother you, that you can't stand, and you can't seem to get away from them one way or the other. You're either working for them, you're married to them, you give birth to them, you were born by them. You know, there's a lot of ways in which this can take place. But basically, they're an exaggeration. They're exaggerating a behavior that is a part of you, because you're human. Everybody has everything. There's no such thing as perfected saints. It's a fallacy, trust me. And that part of you that they're exaggerating is the part you're still judging, consciously or not, or you're not even aware of. Oh no, that's not me, I would never lie, you know, that kind of thing, right? I wouldn't hurt a fly, you know, I'm not violent, you know. And as long as you're doing that, you're basically sending a signal that's attracting more of it until you figure it out. And then the only thing to do at that point is to love it in you. Say, you know, that's always going to be there. You know, I might as well be okay with it. I'm part of the theater. Sometimes I'm part of the contrast, you know, the painful bit. And so it's okay. Now, it doesn't take over. It's not like nothing changes. You still behave 99.9% perfectly well, whatever you want. But basically, in doing that embracing, you stop sending the signal and you won't cross paths with it again. They won't bother you anymore, or you won't even see them anymore. So this happened for me. You know, I was a yogi sannyas and I was trying to become a saint. I was very accomplished at it. It was impossible to really upset me very much or anything like that. And I'd still love you even if you did and all that. I pretty much had it down. I was kind of in that blissful state most of the time. But I had bosses that were increasingly difficult and abusive, frankly, and I couldn't understand why. And then I learned the shadow work, and I had to find a part of me that was still a little harsh, that could get a little bit bent out of shape if something wasn't quite right. As soon as I did, I embraced that part of me, then that boss left the company a week later. I even ran into him a year later, and he was like, "Oh, Jon, how you doing?" It was a really sweet experience. So it really works. Really, I haven't crossed paths with that kind of person since then, in my experience. So you can also, you can make a list of people you can't stand and why, and then just do that work. But you can't do it till you've done all the other pieces. It's really difficult to embrace the violence in you when you're still wounded from being violated or being the violator from this or past lives. So it's the final step. I don't have anybody do it until at least 2 weeks after the work I've done has had a chance to integrate. Okay? So that's it. That's basically every way you can heal these layers. That's all of shamanism, truthfully. Anthropologists focus on the colors of the rattles and the blankets and the altar, you know, which has nothing to do with anything. We're not worshiping cats. We're calling on the characteristic and instinct of cat. We're not worshiping our ancestors. We're creating an ancestor altar. After we've done the clearing, we do the mythic homework like an ancestor altar to make sure that they're no longer influencing us. You know, so most of what's out there is difficult to understand. But anyway, that's shamanism, and that's what we do in the session. And while we're working, before I do the session, I open sacred space. There's a lot of videos with that on it, but I use the cedar, sage, frankincense, myrrh, all the powerful plant medicines to clear the space, create like a sterile environment, like a surgeon wouldn't cut you open in a dirty garage, right? Basically, and we use breath instead of burning and smudging, which is great. This is all a combustion process. It's all fire-based. But breath, Kamayo, in Quechua, is extreme. And in every tradition, in Aramaic, in the language of Yeshua ben Yosef, Jesus, the word that had been essentially kind of mistranslated as spirit, Holy Spirit. It's actually the Aramaic, I think it's milta, if I'm not mistaken, is breath. And prana, every tradition. This is universal, all this stuff. But basically, we put a little on the lips. It's in a 75% alcohol, so it's sterile. And I do this clearing, and I can clear people's energy field with it as well. Sometimes during the session, I'll do that. And then during the session, there's literally nothing you can do that's going to help or interfere. Again, I'm working at this level. There's no thoughts, feelings, emotions here or here. That's only convenient in the theater, right? Including time, linear time and space. And so, since I'm working down here, it doesn't matter what's going on up here. We could be in Grand Central Station. You could be thinking of anything you want, thinking of dinner, whatever. It's not going to interfere. Okay? And remember, you're the boss. I'm your mechanic. I'm not above you in any way, shape, or form. I'm not in charge of the session. You have hired my team and I to facilitate, to mediate, to help this process take place. But it's your as long as you're there, and it was your decision. It's you, right? It's your birthright to have this happen. And so anytime during the session, there isn't anything you can do that's going to, again, bother me. Our training is to make us completely unoffendable and completely non-judging. I always joke around, you could toss me out and toss the stones out and I'll just go have lunch. I won't, no big deal. And I'll see you next time you want, there's never anything. And after every session, I do the kahuna break to cut so that I don't even remember the session, frankly. I'm 100% present in the moment that way. I'm not still picking up information or, we're not engaging in any way after the session in that regard. So it's healthy for both of us. So during the session at any time, you can do whatever you feel you need to do. If you need to get up, you need to do something, you need to ask me to do something, you need to stop. Anything is great. We're really just here to serve you. That's the bottom line. And so you're the boss. And then what else can I say? So, there's no thoughts, feelings, emotions during the work, but it can, like when we're pulling the mud out of the bottom of the glass, a couple of particles could pop up. So the energy could ring a bell on the way out. So you might feel emotions, anger, sadness, you name it, physical sensations, freezing cold, pain, something, but it's very fleeting and it's generally not that big. And if it becomes too intense for any reason, I've never really had anyone had to do this, you would cross your arms over your chest, and that's your way of slowing down the process. What else? So that's pretty much it. Now, the way that I start the session is I would say, okay, why did you come to me? Basically, I break it down to make it simple. Are you having more of the experiences you want, less of the ones you don't want around your health? And if so, what would you prefer? I don't need to know all the story. That's incidental, right? That could go on for years. We could be in therapy. Instead, I just want to know so for example, if someone asked me, John, regarding health, what's the experiences you prefer to be having? I'd say, look, I just want comfort in my body. I don't need to get into every sore muscle and all the things that are not working. I just want comfort in my body, right? Because the universe doesn't hear the word don't know without. People who know the law of attraction stuff know that if you say, I don't want any more sore back, it's going to probably just deliver more sore back. So I want comfort in my body. I want energy to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I want functionality. I want everything to work. I want to feel strong. I want to feel supple, whatever, that would be like health. Relationships, more of what you want. Listen, there's romantic, there's friends, there's family, there's workers, and so on. An example of that, again, I don't need to know the details. I just need to know experientially what you prefer, which is, because we're just going to clear anything getting in the way of you not having the experience. Again, we don't have to get into the detail. Leave that up to to your other practitioners in the physical and in the psycho-spiritual. But things like, I love unconditional love and support. I'd love to have friends and people in my life that no matter when I mess up or no matter what I tell them, they're like, it's cool, I'm not offended, I'm not going to judge you, we're still buddies, you know, and so on. That would be nice. I would love to have fun, play like children, play, you know, have someone that I can just, because that's the purpose of life and relationship anyway, is to play and dream the world into being together. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if, and then two people doing that doubles the amplitude and manifests more quickly. Yeah, so there's any number of things that can fall under that category. Then there's work. Giving your gifts to the world, having them received. Are you doing that, or is it you doing something that isn't that, you know? And will clear anything getting in the way of that finding you, like mine found me. And then there's resources: food, shelter, clothing, money. Are you feeling like you have what you want when you want it, or need what you need it, you know? And so, yeah, you know, and are you worried about it, or are you, you know, would you prefer to be comfortable and confident and secure, knowing that you'll always have what you need when you need it, resource-wise? And then for some people that's like their journey's pretty well dialed in already, it's not uncommon for me to work with, to have people come to me that turn out to be shamans as well. You know, for us, it's a little different than the average villagers that are just, you know, hey, I just want to get my thing dialed in. Shamans also have this sense, right, of wanting to improve the quality of life of the village, which is now the whole world, because we're so connected, you know, through the media and everything. So, you know, when the Kero, for example, greet each other, they don't say, hi, how are you? They say, Aiyanchu, which means, how does your village live within you? Because as that type of person, you're always going to feel a little bit of what's going on and care about everyone else. And so you kind of want to help them be more free and in their power and joyful and peaceful and all that good stuff. So it's not uncommon to get to a point where part of our work is to be the visionary shaman, to sort of dream the world into being for all of humanity, for example, or all the beings on the earth, like a lot of the monks do, a lot of that type of thing. So, you know, we can work on that. We can help support that, clear the way for that to be more of your experience. Yeah. So then once we get that dialed in, then I say, okay, choose some stones. So I'm going to show you the stones from my mesa, and you're going to choose them. Okay, let me make sure I can get this right. Okay, so there's my stones. There's the mesa stones, the kuya in Quechua, the stone people that have been trained. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So those are the 13 stones. There's an extraction crystal. There's other things in there that keep the stones company. But basically, when I do sessions over phone and Skype, I have people just give me numbers between 1 and 13, and it chooses the stones that way. It works beautifully well. These are the Kero weavings, by the way. Yeah, so that pretty much covers it. Just think if there's anything else. So of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, Jon, Jon, at shamanjon.com. You know, I've got a lot of other videos that cover a lot of territory, most recently like the one about clearing the energy field. I do quarterly talks and journeys at my local bookstore, Luminata Books and Gifts, and I usually put those videos up. Those are all totally spontaneous when I do those. I got the general theme, right, of the solstice or the equinox, but I go in without any preparation, and then I get inspired, to share something and even make up a journey in the moment that thankfully so far ends up turning out really well. Anyway, people wondering what's on my shirt, this is the standard model, the standard equation they call it in quantum physics. It's supposed to explain the entire universe from CERN, and they I thought I'd wear it today just for fun to make the connection between the quantum physics and shamanism. And because in shamanism everything's alive, everything has consciousness. So when we open space and we call on the serpent that helps us shed our skin, shed our stories all at once, and we call on the jaguar that helps us to be in our power and free from the ancestral influences, and the hummingbird helps us receive the nectar of life, and the eagle helps us the condor helps us to be the visionary. We literally have that coming to us and helping. And Alberto would joke around, whereas it's hard to call on, string theory, come help me. It's not quite as connected, but it's still good and it's still important. And of course, that's the whole point in shamanism, is that we're not like, hey, just do some energy work and you're good to go. No. You can't just clear your chakras and stuff. One, you got to make sure and cover the mythic layer. So it's really important to do that homework. Like I said on my website, post-session homework that I have my clients do after the session, to make sure that the work we did here has a chance to actually produce results in your life. The whole most important thing. My teachers, this is the difference again between shamanism and other sort of more spiritual hierarchical traditions, where it's like, look, you can have a spiritual experience and recognize you're one with everything and God and source and multi-dimensions and you name it. Go for it. But then they say, so what? How do you grow corn with it? Otherwise, it's just interesting conversation. How's your life? More heaven on earth, more hell on earth. How's it going? So we still want that to be good. So, you got to do this, you got to do the mythic, and then you still have to, do really good therapy. One of my referrals, I have a whole list of people that I refer for other aspects of all of it. Some of my shaman students, way better work than I'll ever do, and because this, again, student leapfrogs the teacher, so go to them. But like the psycho-spiritual stuff, hypnotherapy, my good friend Dylan Rumley, she's amazing at that, and you'll see the link to her contact to do that level. And then there's things like the dynamic neural retraining system that covers the physical and the brain, and there's Alberto's friend Dr. Perlmutter, right, the grain brain and other things that he's produced. The definitive, in my opinion, approach to the physical world, what to eat, exercise, really the latest and greatest research and advice on that. So totally want to do your work on these levels as well, okay? The psycho-spiritual, see your therapist, take your medicines, whatever you need to do. We highly encourage you to continue to do it. In fact, it's more important sometimes to get the work done here and here first to get stable, and then go to your shaman and figure out why for the 5th lifetime in a row you keep having this problem, and then we'll clear it. But either way, you want to make sure you cover all the layers. That's the bottom line. So I think that pretty well covers it, and certainly feel free to send me questions. Again, Jon at shamanjon.com, and of course, if you want to schedule a session over phone and Skype, or I still tend to go to LA once a month and do house calls, in the Bay Area once a month. I'm in Monterey, California. I can work locally here. And I do work at the Post Ranch Inn. I've been there for like 15 years on their menu, and the Cavallo Point Father Sister Resort up in Sausalito. So I try to get there when I'm called. I try to be everywhere. Anytime somebody calls me, and I don't let money get in the way. If people can't afford to offer anything, I don't want to not do the work. So don't let that be a factor. You can always pay anything you're comfortable with. And I do have, like a suggested amount. And of course, people who can sometimes will give more to support that. So that's really wonderful. But anyway, I think that pretty well covers it. All right, thanks. Blessings.